What's up, Noll Nation? It's the guys from Plant the Spear. I'm Jesse. That's Michael. And do the Knolls have a quarterback competition brewing? We're going to talk about all that today. As Florida State has made an interesting addition in Malachi Marshall, who could maybe push for that job. Of course, they have Ashton Daniels and Kevin Sperry. So today we're focusing on the quarterback position for 2026 and maybe a little bit into the future. I think it's going to be a fun and interesting conversation because there's a lot of belief that right now, Michael, any of the three could probably be the starter if depending on how things shake out in camp. So, of course, we got that coming up, and then we're not going to get out of here without going in on Miami a little bit for losing the title game in their own home stadium. Well, their rented home stadium. So, we're gonna finish the episode with that. So we gotta have a little fun with that one as well. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. And Michael, man, this one got pushed back a couple days because apparently we got Ice Mageddon coming to where I'm at in the Carolinas. So I had to do some early prep this week to plan for not having power later on. So this one came out a few days later than I was hoping for. But hopefully we get by with some decent weather this weekend. It's just going to be cold and stuff like that. So, man, excited to get into this one and talk about the quarterback position and make a little bit of fun of Miami. But before we do that, how are you, my friend? Hopefully you're staying a little bit warmer than we are here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me as always. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's the price we have to pay for the prayers we sent up for Miami to lose is now we got to endure the ice.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It was so worth it, and I can't wait to talk about Scum U losing the national championship as well as this what is interesting becoming a QB battle that I think we're about to have.
Yeah, and so we will jump right into that. But before we do, I want to bring you a quick word from today's sponsor, and that is, as you guys know, Alumni Hall FSU. Look, these guys are the gear headquarters for you if you're a Florida State fan. They got everything you could want and then some, over 100 different hat styles to choose from, long sleeve, short sleeve, everything, something for the family. And so make sure you check these guys out. They are located in Tallahassee at 1415 Timber Lane Road, or you can shop online at alumnihall.com. If you're going to shop, you might as well save some money by using code SPEAR to save 10% on your entire order. And you can use that code in store or online to save yourself some money. So we really appreciate you guys supporting Alumni Hall as well as them supporting us. And I'll tell you what, man, shout out to my guy Ralph Spartan 071 who commented on the last episode that was like, hey, I was just shopping at Alumni Hall that day. So again, I know you guys really do support them, and we really do really appreciate that. So Michael, let's talk quarterbacks, man. It's kind of like the best worst feeling of all, right? Because you got a little bit of excitement about the Malachi kid that comes in. You got Ashton Daniels there that I know a lot of people felt was a very underwhelming addition. Where does Kevin Sperry even fit into the mix?
Right.
We took another kid, the Lafayette transfer, the DeNoble kid that's kind of got to fit into this picture. You also got Jaden O'Neal coming in from the high school ranks. So we're going to just kind of go through each name that we feel is realistically in the race, talk about some of the positives and negatives from each one and how this thing could shake out for 2026. Now, we have went and watched film on these guys, right?
Yep.
We were I had thought about trying to work this in some film in here before just this week got chaotic with the weather and everything. And also for our podcast only listeners, it's just kind of tough to do that. So we're just going to kind of interpret our feelings on what we've seen so far from these guys. And I think the first place to start, Michael, is Ashton Daniels, because let's be honest, he is probably the odds-on favorite right now to be the starter, and it's has a lot to do. You paid him a pretty penny, like something like $800,000. He's the most veteran guy that you got, but I also think there's a lot of people that really think he might get beat out by Kevin Sperry, and so we're going to talk about him. Obviously, he comes over, started his career at Stanford, then comes over from Auburn, 6'2", 220-pound guy. He's a little bit more of the size you're looking for at the quarterback. And so when we talk about this, man, I still think that Ashton Daniels at the end of the day is probably going to be your starter for game one, right?
Yeah.
But when we talk about him, the reason I say that is because, let's be frank, man, you're talking about a guy that comes in with 37 Power 4 starts, right? I don't think he's the most talented guy that you got on the roster. We're going to talk about Malachi Marshall in a minute, but I think this kid could be a little bit of a game changer for Florida State, right? I think he's got some of the best arm talent of anybody that you have on this roster at the quarterback position. I think I should maybe start by also saying Jaden O'Neal, as we know, Florida State's 2026 class high school signee, is going to miss the 2026 season with an
Yep.
ACL injury. So
Yep.
Florida State not only had to go out and find some bodies in this room once Tommy left, once Brock left, you had to stack some depth here. Also, knowing that Jaden O'Neal was going to be out, you took a couple extra guys here that maybe you wouldn't have needed other hand.
Right.
So he is, for all intents and purposes, out of this conversation because he's not going to be able to contribute in 2026. When you talk about the other kid, Dean DeNoble, the transfer in from Lafayette, he was basically a starting quarterback at the FCS level, pretty decent, not exceptional. So that's probably going to be your scout team guy. So good for depth, probably not in this conversation either, right? I definitely think it comes down to Ashton Daniels and to Malachi and then to Kevin Sperry. And so, man, when we look at these three, I do think, like I said, I do think Ashton Daniels is probably going to be your odds-on starter. And the reason I say that is, again, the guy comes in with 37 Power 4 starts, and you just really can't replace that. I mean, the Kevin Sperry, he's never started a game at the Power 4 level. He's played in some games, right? And we'll talk about him next. And then Malachi Marshall's he's only been JUCO, right? Well, he spent 1 year FCS, so he's never started a game at the Power 4 level. So I think the veteran experience is what is going to give Daniels the upper hand. Also, Malachi Marshall is going to miss spring. So that's going to kind of put him at a disadvantage to get on the same page. But, when we talk about Ashton Daniels here, man, he is probably, I think, the most prototypical Gus Malzahn quarterback of the group, kind of that run first, the arms just sufficient type of quarterback, right? We've seen in the past he's run for like 600-800 yards in a season when he was at Stanford. He has shown flashes of being able to throw the ball. He's just not been a consistently good passer throughout his career. So while there's a lot of guesswork with Malachi Marshall on what he can be at this level, I think you have a pretty good idea of who Ashton Daniels is. And for Kevin Sperry, you don't really know what he can be either
Right.
as a full-time starter. Now, granted, what we saw him last year was a true freshman, but I do think from a fit perspective, I think Ashton Daniels brings the experience, and he is kind of what Gus Malzahn wants from that running quarterback that he does, that he typically uses. And, again, like I said, man, he's just not been a consistently good thrower of the football, but I think his arm is good enough to make some throws, right? They do a lot of, at Auburn last year, they did a lot of quick game to allow him to kind of do a one read and run type of offense where, if it's not there, you just take off. That's going to be a lot of what you're going to see in Gus Malzahn's offense anyway. Like, you're going to do 1 to 2 reads and then you're taking off. But I think Auburn did a pretty good job of simplifying the offense for him. And I'm hoping that what Florida State will do is not try to make him something he's not good at, right? At Stanford, when you go back, they ran under Troy Taylor, who got fired. They ran more of a pro-style offense. And I think that's where you saw a lot of the struggles. But even at Auburn, I mean, I went back and I looked at the past 3 years, kind of ignoring his freshman year, where the past 26 games from 2023 to 2025, he had 11 games out of 26 that were under 60% completion percentage. He had 15 of 26 games where he threw for less than 200 yards.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that's going to come in and just light up defenses, right? And I do know that some people, myself included, will look back and go, well, he had a really good game against Vanderbilt.
Yep.
He lit him up for like 350 yards and a couple touchdowns there. Vandy was also 118th in pass defense last year. So that was kind of a pretty Swiss cheese pass defense there. Now, he did throw for the most pass yards versus Vandy in the entire season. And they played Alabama too. Also, they played LSU. And he also had the third most passing yards against Alabama with fewer attempts than the other teams that they played, who topped his numbers. And they also had 7 drop passes in that game. So I do think for Ashton Daniels, kind of the case for him is he's going to fit what Gus Malzahn wants to do, right? He averaged almost 16 carries per game at Auburn and around 14 carries per game at Stanford his last year there. And that's kind of what you're looking at. Like, he actually ran the ball more than Tommy did at Florida State. He also threw the ball more. So I think you could see some aspects where, when you look at a per game basis, I don't think they're going to ask him to do as much at Florida State as they did at Auburn, especially if you have a good running game around him. And so I think he can really kind of fit into this. He can make the short throws. He's got a strong enough arm to, and they say the short passing game obviously is an extension of the run game.
Right.
And so I do think with a strong run game, with his mobile ability, with him able to make those short passes, I think he'll do okay in this offense, right? I also think when you throw the deep ball, I mean, having a guy like Deuce, who's just a sponge for the deep ball, he can go out there and kind of soak those throws up because, I was looking at some numbers and 60% of Ashton Daniels' passes last year at Auburn were under 10 yards. Tommy was only 43% because, he would just basically drop back and throw it deep to Deuce. That was pretty much 90% of our offense. So, there's some things that Daniels that you worry about. He's not great as a pocket passer. Probably wouldn't put him in that position, right? He panics under pressure a little bit, but he gives you the size, he gives you the durability. He's able to run the ball over 100 times a season if you need him to. And he's just able to help out depending on how your offensive line is and things like that. So I do think, given those things, I think he is your clear front runner right now.
Yeah.
I think the question that comes down to, and I'll throw it back to you on this. I think the question that you come down to with Ashton Daniels is he does have a relatively low ceiling. And let's just say hypothetically that Kevin Sperry is pretty darn close
Right.
to that level of play. You get more long-term gain by playing Kevin Sperry,
Yes,
right?
you do.
And let's just also say that Malachi Marshall is that dude, right? Let's say he comes on campus and he's just that guy. Well, can this coaching staff, can they afford to keep that guy on the bench if you start losing with Ashton Daniels? And so that's why I feel like, a lot of times it seems like the coaching staff might get locked in on who they pay the most money. And I think that is one value to you not spending $2 to $3 million on a quarterback is if you have to put him on the bench, it's not going to be really that painful to do so because you can afford to kind of set him down and maybe play another guy if you have to. But again, man, I'll throw it back to you on this. I still think he's going to be the odds-on favorite because of his experience and because of his ability to run the ball, and he's going to be here in spring. But I do think there is going to be a competition where Kevin Sperry could realistically push for that number one spot. And if Malachi Marshall, again, we'll talk more about him later. If he can come in and get up to speed and put on some weight once he gets into a real college strength and conditioning program, if what we see on film translates over to the Power 4 level, it might be hard to keep him off the field. I mean, the last thing I'll say is, as I think back to I remember watching this game in 2014. Clemson played Georgia, right? And their starting quarterback for Clemson was Cole Stout. And I remember watching that game, and their offense was kind of struggling a little bit. And he got hurt. I think something happened. And Clemson brings in this young freshman off the bench named Deshaun Watson. And he leads them straight down the field for a touchdown drive. And then they take him out, and he doesn't play again the rest of the game. So, like, if Malachi Marshall is that guy sitting behind the veteran starter who's maybe not the highest level guy, can you afford to take that risk to set him there? But give me some thoughts on Ashton Daniels and where do you think he's going to be the odds-on starter? Because right now I think New Mexico State, when you start that game, it's going to be Ashton Daniels.
Yeah, I think again, this is what I think. So I don't know. I don't, like we always say, we don't have like actual access, but this is what I think based on what I've read and seen is I think Ashton believes he's coming in as the odds-on starter for game one for New Mexico State. I think Sperry believes he's coming in as the odds-on starter for New Mexico State. I think, right? I think the coaching staff has told Ashton Daniels to his face, hey, you're coming in to compete for starting. But in their minds, they're bringing in a body. So that's number one about Ashton Daniels. He is a body in the QB room, okay? And in the coach's mind, because remember, we have to always come back to this every time we talk about this. We're assuming this is a make or break season. Now, we thought that was last season, but it has to be this season. They have to win games. So there's no way that you're going to pay a quarterback and say you're the guy. And if he's crappy, then you're going to just stick with him. There's just no way. And so I think Ashton Daniels thinks he's the odds-on starter coming in. So I'm going to assume he's the odds-on starter coming into the season. Like you said, his ceiling is so low, but his floor is high. But you're getting what you're getting. He has already defined. This is what we said about DJU. This is what we said about Tommy Castellanos, is that they're already defined quarterbacks. And we tried to talk ourselves into believing that they could be better, and they turned out to be what we thought they were, right?
Yep. And this staff does not have a history of fixing broken quarterbacks.
Correct. You just don't. And I know you'll say, well, Jordan Travis, that's a little different situation. They do not have a history of bringing in a transfer quarterback for a 1-year rental and fixing the problems that they have. Ashton Daniels is a one-read, short throw, occasional deep thrower quarterback. That's who he is. He can only read one side of the field. If you try to give him and a lot of Gus's offense is basically one side read and it's done, right? Now Tommy tried to and occasionally read one side and then it wasn't there, and then he had time, he tried to read the other side, but there was nothing really developed there. So this is why Ashton Daniel is a perfect fit for Gus Malzahn offense, but I don't believe that it's going to be this. I don't think he's going to be this transcendent Cam Newton that he heard from the coaching staff. Oh, you could be the next Cam Newton. No, you're not going to be that, bro. You don't have that kind of talent, right? I think as far as triggering the run game, I think he'll be great for that. He's a very good runner. He's a tough runner. He's not your scat back kind of runner. He's not going to make you miss in a phone booth, but he will run you over. He will truck you. He will try to, at least to. And so I think you get a stronger runner there. You get a taller body who can see over the offensive line. And here's the thing. I will say this, Jesse. He can make the throws, okay? He has shown the ability to make the throws. But like you mentioned earlier, he is inconsistent. And we've seen inconsistency, right? Tommy had the ability to make the throws, but he's so inaccurate and inconsistent. And that's the same thing with Ashton Daniels. That's why I think his ceiling, his floor might be higher than Tommy, but his ceiling is so much lower than that. And so you have to go into this season just thinking, okay, yes, we're paying $800,000, whatever it is, for this kid, but we're making this a true competition. And I know we're going to talk about Sperry and the Marshall kid in a second, but we're making this a true competition. Because here's the question I have for you, Jesse. What if Marshall comes in? I know he's going to miss the summer. What if he comes in for preseason camp and he blows? And it's clear. It is uberly clear that he's the best thing you got to get yourself to 8 wins.
Yeah, and I think that is a big part of why, like, you can't just, and this is what it felt like with, especially with DJU, right? When it was like, gosh, this is just awful. And I understand the offensive line sucked, the receiver sucked. A lot of that was on DJU, a lot of that was not on DJU.
Right.
To where it was like, man, just let us just see somebody else. And it took a broken hand to finally make that switch, because it felt like you were just paying him QB1 money, so he was going to be QB1.
Right.
And so my hope is, now that you have, like, and it's kind of funny to say talent gaps because it hasn't been a very talented room, right? But with Brock Glenn and even Luke Kromenhawk as a freshman, the talent gap just was so wide between 1 and 2 that it felt like, even if you didn't like what you had at 1, you just kind of, it was the best you had, so you had to roll with it. And I really do think, I mean, obviously Kevin Sperry, he passed Brock Glenn last year on the depth chart. I mean, anytime you had to go to a backup quarterback, he came in first. So I think the gap between the quarterbacks is a lot smaller now. So like you said, I think if he comes in, and he's supposed to be here, I think, in June, so he should have a little bit of summer going into fall camp. If he comes in and he's that guy, man, I just don't see how you just ignore that, because you sign this guy who you think is going to be, the QB1 just because of what you paid and what you had at the time, right? And so that's why I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think you can just pencil anybody in until you see what they can do.
Yep.
And yes, I do agree with you, where I think from Ashton Daniels' perspective, I think when you put him in this type of offense with what they're going to ask him to do with these receivers that are, I mean, I know they had Cam Coleman at Auburn, but they dropped a ton of passes. I think he can be set up to have his best year. And so I don't want to just say like, oh, Ashton Daniels sucks, he can't be the quarterback, right? I think he's got a fair chance to be a decent quarterback for you, knowing what you're asking him to do. It's just, I think you're going to have that ceiling that's going to be hard to bust with him there. Like, do I see him being a 10-win quarterback? No, I don't. But in this offense, he can be enough for you, right? I'm sure a lot of people didn't see Nick Marshall being whatever they were, 12-win quarterback at the time. But the interesting one, the wild card to me, because I know we're all excited about Malachi Marshall. Like, if you watch this film, you understand the hype around this kid. The X factor to me is really Kevin Sperry. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you have a guy who comes in here 6'1", 215, so he's got some size on him. He did appear in 3 games last year: East Texas A&M, Kent State, and Stanford. He went 12 of 17, 70.6 completion percentage, 194 yards, 11.4 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He also ran the ball 5 times for 39 yards, 7.8 yards per carry, those sack adjusted numbers. He's got some wheels. He's got some mobility. He's also been on campus longer than any
Yep.
quarterback, even as now a true sophomore. Well, redshirt freshman, should I say. Um, and he also has more time throwing to the receivers. Now, I know he didn't get a lot of the starter reps last year. And I will say one thing, side note on this. This is kind of why I was, and you guys probably heard me talk about this a lot last year. I was really kind of disappointed on how they handled him
Yep.
last year.
Yep.
You know, he only played in 2 games, and the only reason he got in the 3rd game was because Tommy got hurt. There was no plan for him to play in
Mm-mm.
that game. I think you should have towards the end of the season, when you realize, like, man, bowl eligibility ain't enough to
Mm-mm.
begin with. You should have, like, love you, Tommy, mean it. I know you tried hard. We got to start planning for next year. Let's put in Kevin Sperry. Let's let him play that Virginia Tech game. Let's let him play that NC State game, the Florida game. So he could have been ready. I mean, how often do people stick around for 5 years anyway? Like, people don't stick around for 5 months in college football anymore, let alone 5 years.
Right.
You tried to protect the red shirt with Luke Kromenhawk. It didn't do you any good. And so, like, I think they should have got him more game experience last year. But again, this is a guy that comes in, and I mean, he looked good when he got on the field. You've seen Deuce come out in the last, like, week or 2 and endorse Kevin Sperry about the potential that he has and how much of a gamer he really is. The one thing I will say with Sperry, though, is, like, I went back and watched the East Texas A&M game just to refresh my memory, and then I went back and watched the Stanford game, and it is a lot different. It is a lot different than what you saw him against. Even, I know I'm going to say a lower level AC, or, a bad ACC team.
Lower
We're a
level
bad
power
ACC
four
team.
team. Yep.
Like, we're a bad ACC team right now. But that level of competition was different, right? When he wasn't playing against an FCS team. And to me, that's the question about Malachi Marshall is, man, he lit up these JUCO defenses. Can he do that at the Power 5 level? So I'll throw it back to you for some thoughts on Kevin Sperry. But I do think, because of Malachi Marshall's need for development, I think he is, like, if I had to go, Ashton Daniels was 1A or just 1, I
Yeah.
would put Kevin Sperry as, like, 2A and Malachi Marshall as 2B right now, right?
Mm.
Because of the time on the roster, because of the physical maturity that he has over Malachi Marshall. I mean, he's 170 pounds. Like, I'm really excited about Malachi Marshall, but he's got, like, a James Blackman build, right? He's just,
Yeah.
you're gonna need 20 pounds to be able to sustain Power 4 football.
Yeah.
And so, man, I think Kevin Sperry is going to be interesting because he's another guy that really fits the system of what Gus Malzahn wants to do. He's got wheels, man. He didn't run a lot, but he didn't get a lot of opportunity. But he can move on with his legs, and we saw in most of the games he can make the throws. And so
Yeah.
now you give him another year of college development, and I think he can be a guy that can really push Ashton Daniels. As I throw it back to you on this, I think the one best thing about all of this, no matter who ends up being the starter, is it does truly feel like you have a competition now. And that's only going to make all 3 of them better, I think, because, it just felt like the last 2 years, DJU was going to start one way or the other. Tommy was going to start one way or the other.
Yeah.
This one, when you're not being pushed by competition, you're not looking over your shoulder constantly, you can get comfortable in that. And you can not feel like you have to push yourself in practice and all that stuff. So I do think the competition in itself is going to make all 3 better. But I don't want to count out Kevin Sperry. I don't think he's going to start over Ashton Daniels, at least early in the season, because the physical tools for Daniels just give him that kind of edge and the experience. But, man, I mean, when we saw him last year, he looked pretty darn good, and he's
Yeah.
been in this system for a year now. One of the only people who are returning that's been in the system for a year, the only quarterback who's returning that's been in the system for a year. So, man, give me some thoughts on Kevin Sperry. But I do think he's a guy that could push for that QB1 spot. And I think Malachi Marshall could too, if he was going to be here in the spring, if he was about 20 pounds heavier. I think he could push for that too. But, man, again, I'm not counting Kevin Sperry out at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with Kevin Sperry, the thing I keep going back to is the fact that you went out and got this quarterback. This was a Gus Malzahn hand-picked quarterback. He felt like Sperry fit his system perfectly. And so they went out and they got him. They didn't settle on Kevin Sperry, because once they changed the OC and they named Gus Malzahn OC, one of the first things he did was went out and got this kid to come to Florida State. So, and then we saw him in 3 games, obviously the 2 games against the, the Kent State and East Texas A&M, but then also in the Stanford game. And I get your point about how like the level of competition, from a terrible Power 4 team in Stanford versus, Kent State, East Texas A&M, for sure. I think that matters. But I also think that what I saw even in that Stanford game, I came away thinking, okay, like he's got tools. He's
Yeah.
easily has tools. Now he has he's been able to practice in this system for a whole year. Now he's going into the offseason with a legitimate mindset that I could win this job, right? With a legitimate mindset, which usually when athletes feel like, oh, I have a chance to be a starter, they naturally, unless their name is Tommy or DJ, elevate their game, right? They take their game to the next level. And so for me, honestly, I'm gonna just tell you right now, my vote for who I would want to start if I had a vote is Kevin Sperry. I
Yeah.
want Kevin Sperry because he's been here. He's been in the system. He seems like a guy that this team would fight for. I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, you already have your 7-figure wide receiver come out and give him a vote of confidence for him. So that's the guy who I'd want. I think his ceiling, while we don't truly know it, you can almost project that it's higher than Ashton Daniels.
Yeah.
His floor might be lower than Ashton Daniels for sure, but his ceiling is higher than Ashton Daniels. And so for me, that's kind of the guy that I'm like really honing in on this season. Unless Malachi turns out to be, the next, Trambless from Ole Miss or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
then of course I'll switch allegiance quickly. I'm all about winning. Okay. But right now, and it's not that I hate Ashton Daniels. It's just that we already know what Ashton Daniels is, and we've seen this movie back-to-back years, right?
Yep.
Give us something we don't know. Give us some hope, and I think Kevin Sperry at this moment, because of the unknown, represents a hope that we may not have tapped into yet.
Yeah, and at some point, you gotta start playing some of these guys that you recruit, right? And
Exactly.
you're right, like, we've seen the movie a few times. Like, you remember when Fast and the Furious came out way back in the day, man?
So
Like, I
good.
loved the first
Mhm.
one. Second was like, "Oh, okay, I'll watch
Okay.
it because I like the first one." About number 7, you're like, "Guys,
Yeah.
let's just stop." Like,
We
you're
played
launching
the
cars onto
storyline.
the moon and stuff. Like, what are we doing here? And it just feels like this is gonna be kind of another
Yeah.
rinse and repeat of those quarterbacks who are like, they're okay passers. They can run, they
Mhm.
can fit in the Gus Malzahn
Yeah.
system. And it's also like you just wonder like what it would be like if you had that higher upside guy. And
Yep.
again, Kevin Sperry is a guy who, if he does okay, like let's just say hypothetically, you would say Ashton Daniels probably at the most, and there's a lot of other pieces that go into this, not just
Yeah.
the quarterback, can get you
Correct.
7, 8 wins, right?
Right.
Well, if Kevin Sperry can get you 7, 8 wins, you can build with him going forward.
That's
It's
right.
not like you're just going to run Ashton Daniels 1 year and then he's gone. He's
Right.
not coming back. And Kevin Sperry could come back. And so I think that's why I do kind of wish they had given him more live fire
Yep.
game reps last year. So we had a better idea so we could feel more confident in what
Correct.
he could be. I mean, you'll start with New Mexico State, so you'll get a chance if he were to win the starting job to get a game under his
Yep.
belt. But man, I mean, like you said, for even just watching him, and I know I said like when you look at the Stanford game, it wasn't as good as the FCS game. He's also a true freshman, and he
Correct.
was thrown into a situation where he probably wasn't expecting to play, and so I do think there is that aspect of it too. And he's he's an exciting player too. We
Yep.
called him kind of like the Timu Baker Mayfield. And so like you kind of want to see him, you want to see what he's got. And so
Right.
I hope he pushes. And I will say that again, I think if it's kind of like if it's an even difference and maybe things aren't going good, I think you should make the switch and just kind of plan for him to take over. Now, let's also talk about the one that's got everybody really excited, and myself included, right? And that's Malachi Marshall, because
Mm.
I think this kid the young man, I guess I should say, has the ability to be a game changer for Florida State. Maybe not this year, but going forward, right? And first off, shout out to Malachi Marshall, South Point Stallion, Rock Hill, South Carolina, from my neck of the woods. I work like 20 minutes from his high school, so shout out to the 803. So excited to have him in Tallahassee as well. But man, you talked about it. He was basically told he's coming in to compete for the second quarterback spot,
Right.
right? To see if he can win the backup job. Which in a way kind of tells you if he's competing for QB2, that means they probably have an idea who QB1 is, and you're going to be competing for the QB2 spot. The benefit is he's got 3 to play 2.
Yep.
So he can take that red shirt this year if he doesn't win the job, and he can still have 2 years going forward. And I mean, when you watch this kid play on film, you see it. You
Yeah.
see why they took a chance on him because he's got ridiculous arm talent.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
watching the film, man, he can throw off balance. He can kind of change his arm slot a little bit. He can fit the ball into really tight windows. He's got really good touch, really good kind of just understanding of how the quarterback position needs to be played. Now, the problem that you run into is how does that translate from JUCO to the Power 4 level, right? I know we played one season at FCS at Stony Brook, didn't really go so well, went JUCO, and it went great for him, right? 2025 NJCAA junior college offensive player of the year. He won a national championship. He was number 2 in pass yards in JUCO. He was number 1 in pass touchdowns in JUCO, number 1 in pass efficiency, first team All-American, the number 1 JUCO quarterback coming out on 3 and 247 composite. I mean, I'm actually kudos to the staff for even landing him, right? Because what you're hoping is you can get that Trinidad Chambliss type of guy. And, I understand that JUCO has that kind of stigma, right? About, well, can
Right.
they translate? I mean, hey, Cam Newton played JUCO before he went to Auburn. Now, totally different situation. He started at Florida, I think it was like stealing laptops or something like that, which is kind of wild to think of nowadays because they would have just given him a truckload of laptops and $5 million to play, and it would have been perfectly fine. But he goes JUCO, has an insane season, wins a national championship, goes to Auburn, and look at what Gus does with him. And so, Aaron Rodgers was a quarterback that started in JUCO before he went to Cal. So it doesn't mean you can't find some diamonds in the rough at the JUCO level. But, when you put on the tape, you do see, like, yes, it's very impressive what he's able to do.
Yeah.
You also got, like, some defensive linemen out there that look like me playing right now, about my size. So it's just the level of athleticism is totally different. With that being said, you're still putting the ball, the same touch on the ball to get it to the receivers. You're still fitting that into the same windows. Like putting a ball, splitting defenders is still splitting defenders with a pass. And some of the ones I've seen, like go watch his huddle film. It's really impressive. And I will say that I watched that's a highlight tape, so it can mislead you a little bit. I went back and watched the national championship game that they played against Hutchinson Community College, which, by the way, Iowa Western Community College is the Saban dynasty of them and Hutchinson of JUCO. So it comes from a good JUCO school. But, when you go back and watch, it's not all perfect, right? I think in one of the games he started like 1 for 7, but also his receivers are just bad, man. I mean, even one of his picks last year was just hit the receiver right in the hands. He just blooped it and it went right to the defender, and he ended up, I think they ran it back for a pick 6. But man, I mean, again, when you look at it, when you watch his film, you can see that he probably has the most arm talent of all 3 quarterbacks, all really 4 if you count Jaden O'Neal on the roster. It does kind of suck that he's going to get that late start, not being here till June, because I'd really like to see not only him get that extra time in the offense, but that extra time with strength and conditioning. Because as I hinted at earlier, man, he's got kind of that James Blackman build. He's a very kind of lanky, skinny built guy at 6'2", 170. Like, I think I looked it up. James Blackman was 6'5", 190. So to me, I would like to see at a minimum of him put on 20 pounds, right? 190, easy, just to be able to be durable enough. I also think in a weird kind of way, he's not really the greatest fit he's probably the worst fit of the 3 for Gus Malzahn's offense, right?
Yep.
He can run. We saw a couple of highlights on the huddle film where he did run. He can move the pocket. He can evade pressure. He can do all that stuff. He's just not a guy that's going to go out and run for 600 yards, which is what Gus Malzahn typically likes. So I think I think the problem with having these 2 as 1 and 2 is you kind of have to build the offense a little bit differently for these 2, right? You can't just have the quarterback run game be the identity of your offense. You're going to have to let this guy throw the ball a little bit more, kind of like maybe he did with when he had like a Bo Nix or a Jarrett Stidham. You'd kind of have to run that kind of offense a little bit more there. But again, I mean, this kid, man, when you watch it, he is legitimate. He can do all the things you want a quarterback to do. It's just, will that translate to the next level? And I don't know if he'll be the guy for 2026. But again, like we talked about, if you're struggling with Ashton Daniels, and maybe Kevin Sperry's still young and just not grasping the offense like you wanted to. If you know you got the guy sitting behind them, can you afford to not play him? Because I don't know that that's going to be the case. And so we'll see how he translates over, but at least the positive side of things is he does, if he does not play this year and he takes that red shirt, you still have 2 years to work with him. And I think in 2027, Jaden O'Neal, Kevin Sperry aside, I think Malachi Marshall is going to be really in the running for the QB1 spot. And I'm excited about that because I think, again, this is one of the better quarterbacks Mike Norvell's had to work with since he's been in Tallahassee, if he translates from the JUCO level over. So, man, I'm excited about Marshall. I don't know that he's going to be in the plans for this year, but if he is what he looks like on film, it might be one of those situations where he's just so hard to keep off the field because he's doing pretty darn good that you got to play him at some point.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see. I think it's hard to think about 2027 because we don't know if this coaching staff is going to be back in 2027. If this coaching staff is not back in 2027, then all those plans with Malachi are gone because he's probably going to leave too, right?
Yeah.
Because he came to play obviously for Gus and Mike Norvell. I think with Malachi, yeah, I mean he you watch his film and you can see the electric arm. He can make all the throws. He's an accurate. He's probably the most accurate QB they've had, since probably Jordan Travis, right?
Yeah.
Under Mike Norvell. So he brings in that in. Obviously, he's won. He knows how to win.
Yes, that's
really
big.
huge. That's big, right? He knows how to win. You think about DJU, he only had he had 2 winning seasons, but really one was at Oregon State and one was like his freshman year at Clemson. Outside of that, not, he had wins, but he didn't win. And
It was
Tommy,
they won in spite of him, not
they
because
won
of
in
him.
spite of him, not because of him. And Tommy, he didn't know how to win. And you saw it
Yeah.
again. He had a very Tommy-like season, right? Everywhere. This kid knows how to win. So I like that about him. He's natural, he's tough, even though he's got that James Blackman, Slim Reaper. I said it right this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though he's got that figure, he's tough though. He will
Mhm.
run, he will try to run, and he doesn't mind taking a hit or two. So I like that factor of him as well. I'm not excited about him, just as I'm not excited about anybody in this room, just as I'm not excited about, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just being a realist of like, it's hard for me to trust the development of this coaching staff. They have proven time and time again, outside of JT, Jordan Travers, they cannot develop a QB. They just can't. And so I'm leery about what they see. Like, I know we see it and we like it. What do they see? And if they see it, then are they willing to if he's the best QB, are they willing to say, yeah, you're going to play? I mean, it took an injury to Austin Simmons, I think his name was, before Chomless was able to even get into the game at Ole Miss.
Mhm.
And then they discovered, oh, this guy's a baller, right? So what will it take for them if Malachi is the best QB, even if he doesn't have the size, if he is the best QB, he should play, right? Point blank and
Yeah.
simple. And so I'm reserving my excitement till I get to see him actually in Power 4 level play. Hopefully in New Mexico State, they're up so big that he does actually get in, or he might end up starting, he might beat him out, which in that case is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say a couple things to that. I will say, first off, he did say that he plays in a very similar offense
Mm-hmm.
to what Gus Malzahn runs. It's just the
Terminology,
verbiage is gonna be a
right?
little bit different. So, they will probably he said, like, "When I get there, I'll be ready, so don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about that." So I'm excited. I'm excited about him. You know what I mean? Because I think you can see the upside potential. But like you said, will he even be here in 2027 if the staff
Right,
gets fired? Maybe
right,
not. Also, I will say with the quarterback position, I still do hold a little bit of we'll see with this
right.
group because a lot of the quarterbacks we saw fail under Mike Norvell had nothing to do with the new quarterback coach
Yep.
and with Gus Malzahn. Now we know
Malzahn.
Gus
Yep.
Malzahn doesn't have the greatest history with quarterbacks to begin with, but I can't hold Chubba Purdy and all these other guys
Correct.
against a staff
Correct.
that wasn't here. So we'll see how they handle that position. And Kevin Sperry again looked pretty good for a true freshman last year. So we'll see how he ends up, working out. But I definitely think, part of me wants to see, like you said, in that New Mexico State game where maybe you're just up so big you get all three a chance, and then you can really kind of hone things in. We don't know the order of the schedule yet to
Right.
know exactly who's going to come up next. But you know how they say, man, if you got two quarterbacks, you got none.
You got
And
none.
so I think you want to have a defined starter, and you want to see how that is before you get into game one, which is why I still think that the excitement for me is around what Malachi Marshall projects to be and what Kevin Sperry could turn out to be. But that's why I think you're looking at a lot of potential of what could be. Whereas Ashton Daniels, you kind of already know a little bit. And the way he fits into the system, that's why I think like I talked about earlier, I think the talent gap between the three, like when you go into the season, I, honestly, if any single one of the three were named the starter for the New Mexico State game, I would be no less surprised than the other one.
Yeah.
Whereas last year, I think if you'd have seen like, wait, Brock is starting, against Alabama, I think you'd have been like, what the heck happened?
Yep.
I think that's a little different this year, right? I think any of the three could start, but as much fun as it is to talk about a competition and it's good for the position, I still think it's going to be Ashton Daniels and then Kevin Sperry pushing to maybe supplant him for the starter. And then Malachi Marshall is just going to be kind of your developmental guy that if things translate well, he can be QB1 in 27 and going forward if the staff is still here. If the staff leaves, a new one comes in, he still wants to stay, right? Because, again, he can probably play a little bit more outside of Gus Malzahn's offense just because of he's a more pure passer
Right.
than a running type of guy. So, again, man, I just think it's exciting for once it's kind of funny to say exciting, right? Because you're excited about three not superb quarterbacks, but that doesn't mean that you don't finally have some competition in the room, which I think will make them all better. So at the end of the day, I'm at least excited to know that you have guys that are pushing. And then if one guy seems to struggle, it doesn't feel like just a disaster plan to put the next guy in. When you would put Brock in, you'd be like, here we go, buckle up. It's either going to be Brocktober started fun and ended poorly. And so, yeah, so I think you have true competition at the position, which is only going to elevate it better. It's only going to make Ashton Daniels push a little bit harder. But, again, I think the problem is you just kind of took Ashton Daniels because it was what you could get at the time in this offense with the way things are going. People were kind of, when Stanford is kind of excited for their quarterback to leave, that kind of tells you a little bit about what he was there. But again, it was an offense that didn't fit his skill set very well, and Auburn did kind of tailor their offense to it, to his skill set. So I do think Florida State will do that same thing for Ashton Daniels, and I just think the 37 Power Four starts, the willingness to run, the willingness to be the quarterback that Gus Malzahn wants running this offense, I think he will be the starter. But again, man, if we kick off against New Mexico State and it's Kevin Sperry or it's Malachi Marshall at 6'2", 190, he gained some weight and he came in on fire, I wouldn't be surprised if any of the three were able to start. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, like I mean, for me, it comes back to this idea of what if there is any excitement in my bones around this QB room, it's the fact that while we can while we can make an assumption or an educated guess, let's go with that. While we can make an educated guess that Daniels might be the odds-on favorite to be the starter, it's not penciled in. It's not written in pen. Whereas the last two seasons, it was written in pen that DJU was going to be the quarterback, that Tommy Castellanos was going to be the quarterback. So you were slinging all your hopes on that QB. You had already clung to that. That's our hope for the season, is that QB. Whereas this year, you at least have a real quarterback competition. And so based on the stuff you hear coming out of, spring and preseason camp, fall camp, all like that stuff, the tea leaves, you can actually figure out and determine which quarterback you'd be excited to have in the starting rotation. That gives you a little bit of hope that this coaching staff is taking very seriously. We've got to find the best QB we have in our room right now to get us wins, to win the game, right? There's no more, hey, we've paid you $800,000, Ashton Daniels, you're the QB. No. We've paid you $800,000, but you may not be the QB. And I like that. If there is one thing to be excited about, I like that there's an actual QB competition going on right now, or at least that's what I'm believing.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel so, like you said, it does not feel so ride or die
Right.
if that experiment does not go well.
Right.
Like, if he's not doing good, then you could put in Kevin Sperry, and it doesn't feel like you just broke glass in case of emergency.
Correct.
And so I'm excited to see how it plays out, man. I mean, I know people were kind of disappointed in Ashton Daniels when we took him. I think he'll be okay in this offense if they tailor it to what he can do and he does what they ask him to do. Because this Gus Malzahn's offense doesn't ask you to do a lot as a
Right.
quarterback, to sit back there and be a prolific passer. And that's why I think he'll be the guy this year. But man, again, Kevin Sperry and Malachi Marshall, if they push, again, I could see any of the three starting. Probably Malachi Marshall's probably the last option there, just because you got the development in the late start. But again, competition is always good. And so I'm excited to see that as well. Now, one more thing to talk about before we round out this show, before we get into kind of digging at Miami a little bit here. If you guys are enjoying this content, we would love to have you guys hit that subscribe button and like this video. We are just a single digit number away
Come
from hitting
on.
2,800 subscribers. Man, I know you guys, I got a feeling you guys can really push us over the limit, even in this episode. So drop that like, drop that subscribe, and help us get there. Rate and review on the podcast helps as well, man. That would be awesome. It means a lot to us. And so the last thing I want to talk about, Michael, is speaking of wins and losses, there was a team that lost on Monday, and we
It
have not
did.
had a chance to take our shots yet. And you guys know how we do on this show. So we're going to take a couple shots at Miami real quick. And man, I gotta say, and we're gonna be tongue in cheek about a lot of this, right? But it was a good game, right? I was a little bit nervous,
It
and I'm
was.
gonna be honest, man. When Indiana picked off Carson Beck's last pass, you'd have thought Florida State won the
Oof.
national championship,
Bro.
because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and Indiana was my friend that night. And so when they picked that off, man, I just exploded. I was like, yes, thank
Yeah.
goodness, because you could just feel it, right? You could feel that last drive, but then Carson Beck was who he was, man. I
Yeah.
saw a crazy stat the other day that said Carson Beck has lost 6 total games in his college career. 4 of those losses came as he threw a pick on the last drive to win the game.
Makes sense.
He is what he is, right? And so it was just funny to kind of see, like, they had so much confidence rolling into that game. Miami fans more than anybody else, and you guys know how they are. We're gonna roll them, and they ain't
Mm.
ready for this and all that. And so it was a good game, and I will at least give Miami a smidge of credit. Like, they belonged, right? They were the second best team in the country, and they deserve to be there. And that does worry me, because they might not go anywhere anytime soon, because I mean, they're going to lose a lot off that team. You lose Bain, you lose Mesidor. That's enough right there. Ahmad Moten in the middle, but I just saw they signed one of the best edges in the portal. So,
Mhm.
as long as you can continue to buy players, that's Miami's route to success.
Mhm.
But man, it was hilarious to see Indiana celebrate a national championship in Miami's rented stadium as they kind of walked out sad there. So I enjoyed that. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of funny because they won a lot of games, but they didn't really win anything. They don't have an ACC championship to fall back on, no national championship. And you ever watch the movie The Water Boy?
Oh, yeah. You can
Where
do it.
I love that, where he's like, mama said that the alligator's upset because he got all them teeth and no toothbrush. Miami's upset, man, because they got all them wins and no trophies to show for it. So it was great. And all I could think the whole time was, like, the little Indiana chant, Hoosiers. I was like, okay, for Miami, it's losers. And so
Mm,
it
mm,
was it
mm,
was it was funny to see.
mm, mm.
And I'll kick it back to you on this, though, man. What you've seen Indiana do is incredible, right? And I know they spent some money. I heard the roster was like $20 million, something like this. They spent some money, and they just went about it a different way. But the other takeaway from that game is the blue chip standard, which has been held for over 10 years, like 10, 12 years, has now been broken. And when I say broken, they came off the top rope,
I mean,
because,
they came off the top rope.
like, Florida State in 2023 would have been the team to do it. And I think we were something in the 40s.
Mhm.
They have an 8% blue
Mm,
chip ratio.
mm.
8%. So I do think it kind of throws you back to the drawing board about what's possible about getting those veteran players, transfers coming in with experience, with proven production, and being able to unite them as one team, and be able, the things you can accomplish. I mean, 16-0 is ridiculous.
Mhm.
The funny thing about it, though, is I've seen a lot of people talk about this, is people forget, like, Mike Norvell was the originator of this blueprint. What he did to get that 23 team where it was at was the same kind of blueprint that Cignetti used, right? Taking highly productive veteran transfers from the portal and not so much through high school and just getting them to play together as one team, leadership, all that type of stuff. And it took them as far as they can go. The problem for me when you see that is like, man, he did it and it almost worked and he got screwed. He can't help that. That wasn't Mike Norvell's fault. I will still die on the hill that we should have been in the playoffs, and with JT, we'd have won a national championship. Now you've seen someone else follow that blueprint, because remember, people made fun of Mike Norvell. Miami fans, Miami made fun of. They had their beat
Portal
writers.
Mike,
right. They were writing hit pieces on Mike Norvell about how we developed down in Miami, and now they just buy portal quarterbacks at least. And so it's shown that method actually can work. The problem is, like, Mike has just kind of lost his fastball and he's not been able to get it back. And that's the part that's frustrating for us Florida State fans, is like, Mike Norvell laid the blueprint in like 2022 when he started doing this. And it's just whatever happened with the snub that broke him, he's never been able to get that back, but you've seen it work. And so it's like, man, it's just, it makes you even madder at 2023, right? To see, to know that worked. But incredible game by Indiana, hilariously funny loss for Miami. And I know they're going to, if fans find this, they're like, whoa, we lost the national championship game or whatever. Well, guess what, buddy? We put the same amount of trophies in the trophy cabinet at the end of the year. So blow off a little dust of your trophy cabinet, and still no ACC championship. So, Michael, give me some thoughts on that title game and how it played out.
Yeah, I mean, I was similar to you. I went into the game. I know I made my pick on here. I said Miami.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in you.
Now, listen. It's reverse psychology. Okay.
Fair enough.
I explained this on the text message. You darn well know I did not want them to win. But if I picked them, I guaranteed they wouldn't win, because we are Florida State fans, and right now anything we love goes to hell in a handbasket. Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I picked them knowing that reverse psychology would say the football gods out there would be like, oh no, a Florida State fan picked Miami to win. We can't have that happening. Right.
We're going to make sure you're miserable.
Exactly. So, but it was, what a game. I watched it with a friend, and that first almost first half there, you thought, man, if Indiana could have picked up a couple more third downs, this is a blowout. I mean, it was headed towards there. Miami could not get any pressure on Fernando Mendoza. They couldn't. Indiana was stuffing the run, but not just stuffing the run, because remember, Florida State stuffed the run when they came to Doak Campbell Stadium. But then we had a hilariously terrible game in the back and the backside of our defense. Our DBs just let us down. Well, Indiana was stuffing the run, and they were shutting down the passing lanes. Carson couldn't get a pass anywhere. I mean, he just did not look very good. Then Miami made some adjustments in the second half. They were able to get a little bit more pressure on Fernando, which, I mean, you saw that defense, man. Every time he stepped back, I was like, this boy gonna be seeing Bane and Mesidor in his exactly.
Yeah,
he's gonna be seeing him in his dream. Did you see at one part they showed
his arm,
his forearm, and it was so bruised up from all the hits he was taking in that second half. I mean,
and he was bleeding from the dirty hit that they laid. I mean, it was legal but dirty.
It was dirty, and it was not legal. That was not a legal hit. He went under the chin, helmet first. That is definition.
I guess when
targeting.
I say it was targeting, but you're fair game on a run play. I think that's where some people get confused, is when you hand the ball off, you're fair game, but it was targeting, and it should have been called.
It should have been called. There was a hold. Oh my gosh, on Fletcher's 80-yard run, there was a hold where the guy, I mean, literally, you see him pull, the jersey is separated from the defensive lineman, and the referee standing right there in his view and didn't even call it.
Miami got away with a lot that night.
You thought the Big 12 was trying to help the Miami to win the game.
I know.
It was so bad. But yeah, I mean, and then before I make fun of Miami real quick, I want to go to your point about Indiana and Mike Norvell. You're absolutely right. Mike Norvell was the originator of this process, right? Go in the portal, get highly productive, low-star players who were productive at their previous school, come in, coach them the right way, and then they produce for you. Right, we saw that in 2022, went 10-3. We shouldn't have lost those 3 games, except maybe one, that we end up losing. We shouldn't have, which would have put us in the ACC championship game and probably the playoff that year in 22, right? If we don't lose it to NC State by throwing jump passes to a 4'0" wide receiver, okay?
Yeah.
And then Wake Forest, we should have won that game there too. Obviously, the Clemson game was whatever. But then you come back in 23, you go out, you get a Braden Fisk, Jared Verse comes back, JT comes back, you go out, you're able to secure the likes of Keon Coleman in the springtime, and now you got this juggernaut of a team that, you probably didn't achieve what you wanted to from an offensive standpoint over the year as they wore out, got injured. But, man, if JT doesn't get hurt, you're in the playoff. I still believe they win the national championship.
Yep.
I am convinced that they could have won a national championship without JT because of that defense and how good it was. Okay.
I do too. Yep.
Regardless of that, though, the problem was, and until there's a 30 for 30 that comes out and they do some kind of analyzing on Mike's brain, like you said, Mike lost the fastball. And I think the snub, and we've argued this thing out a billion times, or we've talked this thing out a billion times. I think the snub made Mike feel like they had to take risk on players in 24 transfer. So instead of sticking to the normal process of getting production, they went out and got a lot of potential from big name schools. And what we found out was there's a reason why those kids from those big name schools weren't playing, right? And then you had a terrible O-line, you had a terrible quarterback, you had, less than super athletic wide receivers, and your defense just basically gave up halfway through the season. They were playing their tails off, and they just gave up because they know what the offense was. And that snub just broke Mike. He's not the same coach. He's not the same developer. He's not the same identifier of talent. Whereas you look at Kirk Cignetti, and the dude is just a monster of a talent identifier, right? And so I think that's a big thing. What will be the key test of Indiana experiment is year 3, when all these players are gone, right? Yes, you got a ton of money. Can you again identify in the portal again? They went out and got Josh Hoover as their quarterback from TCU, right? They went out and got some of the best portal players out there. Can they do it again? As far as Miami's concerned, listen, I don't care what you say. I don't care that you say that we lost to you. I don't care you say that we went 5-7. I don't care you talk about 2-10. The fact of the matter is that in 20-something years, you've only had 3 10-win seasons and no trophies to go with it. Absolutely none. And in our 20 years, we've had 2 trophies, national titles, and we've had a bunch of ACC titles, which you haven't won yet. You've been in this league forever. You also haven't won a bowl game. You also lost Pop-Tart Bowl last year to a terrible team. All right. So let's just be reminded that while, yes, you might be back per se, you're still FFMMM.
Facts. And so it was just funny to watch, right? Because they knew, man, they knew. And look, I almost put on Facebook like Mark safe from watching a grown man spank a dummy with a belt, because like I was just so.
Oh my gosh! Did you see where I think it was Holly Rose? She was showing the white powder that she had.
Yeah.
And there was a meme that said, "Did she shake Michael Irving's hand?"
The memes were elite. They were elite. And I saw he went on a podcast or something like that, and he was talking about it. He's like, I ain't done that in 20 years or whatever, but I like some 5-hour energy. I was like, is that what they call it nowadays? Because yeah, bro, I don't. That 5-hour energy don't make you do that.
Exactly.
So it was just, man, it was through all. Like I kind of joked where I was like, them winning would have been the cherry on top of the crap sundae that we've had to stomach for the last 2 years, and so. That was the only redeeming factor for Florida State fans, was to watch them lose.
PTS fans, here I'm gonna give you insight into our text message thread. I text Jesse. I think it was the second. It was first down. Miami had just gotten into like not red zone. I think they were on like the 30-ish. And I text Jesse and I go, they're gonna win. They're gonna do it, and we're gonna just be absolutely miserable. And Jesse apparently was few seconds ahead of me
Yeah.
because he sends me the lead course. So not so fast, my friend.
Yep.
And it says Beck delivers. And I go, what? And then literally like a few seconds later, I see Beck throw that interception, which first of all was a terrible throw.
Oh,
I
it
get
was
why.
awful.
Okay. I get why he wants to make that throw because he thinks he can layer the ball over the corner and that the safety's not going to get there in time. But because the corner knew that he had safety help, he shortchanges the route and then Beck underthrows that ball. But
And the receiver, he said he never even turned around and looked for the
never
ball.
turned
And he
around to
said a
look for
lot
the
of it was on
ball.
him too. Yep.
Exactly. And so, but as soon as, dude, I jumped so high, like Florida State had won the national championship.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the only thing that tops my hate for Miami is my love for Florida State. And so, like, watching them lose was almost as good as watching Florida State win. So it always makes me feel better. But it was funny. And I had texted you before the game. I said my score prediction was 27-21. So it was pretty darn
You're
close.
pretty close.
I thought Beck would throw 2 interceptions, but the one was worth 2. So it worked out in the end anyway. But that's going to be it for today, guys. We just wanted to come in, talk about the quarterback position, also talk about, this is Plant and Spear. If you know us, we can't get out of here without making fun of Miami a little bit. And so we appreciate you guys tuning in. Not a whole lot going on by way of Florida State right now. Not a whole lot of news breaking out. There's some recruiting going on for 2027. We're going to start working on some baseball coverage, getting ready for that season coming up. We're less than a month away now.
Please save us, baseball. Please save us.
Man, Link and Lonnie, please. We need the spring sports to give us something to be happy about and deliver. But I'm excited about these 2 teams that we got coming up in the spring. So make sure you lock in with us. We're going to take care of baseball and softball. We're going to talk about these teams coming up. We're going to give them the credit that they deserve. Oh, Michael, speaking of round ball sports, I cannot get out of here without giving credit. Speaking of Miami losing things,
hey,
our basketball team
come on
might be a big bag of butt cheeks.
but they don't lose to Miami.
They did beat Miami. And so shout out to Coach Luke Laux. I mean, carrying on tradition. If Coach Ham couldn't win any other games, he could always beat Miami. And so I was not confident. I think this was like their Miami's best start in like 10 years or something like that, and still lost on their home court.
9 straight lost on their home court to Florida State. 9.
I absolutely love it. So shout out to the basketball team for at least giving us that win. It was sweet, at least for that one point in time. So hopefully, maybe they can use that as a turnaround moment. But as long as they beat Miami, I guess it is what it is, right? If we were going to go 2-10, just let it be Florida and Miami that you win.
Exactly.
And you know what? It is what it is. But that's going to be it for us, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe on the channel. You can also join as a member if you want. It's only $5 a month. It is not required. We don't ask you to sign up if you don't want to. If you choose to, we would love to have you. Everything that you donate goes right back into the channel to make it better for you guys. We have tailgates throughout the year and all that type of stuff. So we greatly appreciate that. And I also do want to give a shout out to our members, man. We cannot thank you guys enough. I think we have like 15 or 16 of you guys. And so just shout out to everybody there. Really, really appreciate you guys for joining and helping support us. Rate and review on the podcast helps as well. And Michael, we will see you on the next one. So for now, we always end with a Go Noles, but I think on this special occasion, we'll end this one with a FFM.
Let's go.
And that's going to do it, guys. We'll see you.